Welcome to the Fintech Scaling Show. This podcast is sponsored by 𝒘𝒂𝒏𝒀𝗵𝗵𝗵 Consulting, helping fintech startups create a scalable organization to support an ever-increasing demand. When you're ready to grow, reach out to us at richard@𝒘𝒂𝒏𝒀𝗵𝗵.co. Now, over to the show with Richard Doherty, founder and host.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Scaling Up Show, where we talk to world-class operators and we get their insights on how they're scaling up not only their business but also themselves as they continue in their journey. And today, super excited to welcome back Tom. Tom is the co-founder of 𝒄𝒏𝒃𝒂𝒏𝗵𝗵 out in the Netherlands. So Tom, welcome back today. Really stoked to get you back on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much, Richard. It's always a great pleasure.
Brilliant. And today's show, we're going to be talking about control and responsibility and how that impacts you as a founder and entrepreneur on your journey to, again, not only building up your business, but also building up your knowledge and making certain that you continue to move forward as the days and weeks go by. So, maybe it's a good place to start with around getting some insights from you around this word control, because I feel that, in society today, control sometimes it might have a bad name. Maybe when we think about control, we think about micromanagement and in that type of thing. So I would like to know from you, what is your philosophy when it comes to control, and more specifically being able to control your company in the direction you want it to go?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yesterday evening, but just by coincidence, I didn't realize it, I posted an article of Harvard Business Review about the difference between autonomy and flexibility, and I think that really fits. I think in the end it's always about autonomy, self-determination theory it's called, Daisy and Ryan. So perhaps we'll dive into that later, what really motivates people and also what motivates founders. And then perhaps the name of your show is about scaling. And the interesting thing is, I think you have to put it very black and white, two type of perhaps founders. On the one hand, you have founders who scale a company and then they leave the company because they say, I don't like it anymore because I've become a manager. And on the other hand, you have founders who love to scale the company because it's a possibility to get rid of a lot of stuff by hiring people who are much better in doing the stuff you have to do in the beginning. So I would like to dive into the second part because I think I'm an example of the second one. So I think the bigger our company becomes, the easier the game is, because in the beginning you all have to do the stuff you're not really good at, but you can't just hire all those specialists. So I think if you really want to go to the bottom, it's about trust and hiring just better people all the time. And if you trust people and also know they're much better than you are because they're a specialist, then scaling is an easy game.
So, okay, trust is an interesting word because generally when to trust someone, maybe we feel that as individuals, not even as founders, just as individuals, even in your everyday life, or if you're a worker, an employee, etc., you feel like maybe someone has to prove themselves in order to get that trust. But I'm wondering whether that's the case. I'm wondering whether we trust them because we know that they're the experts, we know that they can deliver, and we give them the, as you mentioned, the autonomy and the flexibility to get on with it from day one. What are your thoughts?
You can trust, to my point of view, anybody.
Yeah.
So it's this whole idea that you have to distrust people. To my point, it's just not the case. So, and there is enormous amount of research done on that. So it can be about wallets, which are brought back. I mean, it still has to do with the society. So let's say if you have a lot of poor people and they don't know how to survive and they're laying in the streets and somebody finds a wallet, then okay, that's normal that somebody will take perhaps out some money from this wallet. But let's say in general, it's just incredible that people just bring this stuff back, or that you can just leave your stuff somewhere, or to put it more in the context of the working floor, that you have to lock equipment. You just don't have to do this. And there are so many examples of what I would call good leadership. I just think about 𝒄𝒓𝒆𝒂𝒕, for example. The 𝒄𝒓𝒆𝒂𝒕 way is a book, but there's a lot of other examples where just people who build those companies, they say you don't have to lock the equipment of our people, because what does it say about let's say our culture or about our team? And even if something would happen, who cares? Because let's say the whole cost and the whole distrust, the cost of distrust is so out of proportion that it just doesn't make sense. And in a lot of cases, it's perhaps just, I would say, it's not on purpose. So perhaps somebody took equipment to solve something at home and forgot to bring it back. It's not. In most cases, it's like, let's say you're looking for something in your apartment, and then you think your partner has put it somewhere, and then you just say, oh no, my glasses are here, I put it there. So it's I think we should more reflect on trusting people.
Yeah, because if we hire an expert, a marketing expert, or a developer, or even a leader in a position of maybe a head of sales, if we give them that trust, or maybe you can give us an example. If you've given people trust in 𝒘𝒉𝒊𝒂𝒕, and you've been able to enjoy the ride, enjoy the flexibility that comes with working on the business and not working in the business and day-to-day operations. How has that played out as you've implemented that from sort of day one to obviously where you are now?
It's a process. So just to put, let's say, in certain phases. We founded the company a little bit more than 10 years ago. We are not there where we are now. We're 60 people now, still small. And we started, let's say, implementing horizontal structures or self-organization or holacracy, however you want to call it. We're building our own model. We did probably, I don't know, after 5 or 6 years, because we just saw, okay, it's going too big. We're not fitting on around one table. So it starts with trust. Then horizontal structures really help. So give trust to the team. And then you can say to an individual person, we have installed this golden rule: treat other people like you want it to be treated yourself. But if you don't know or have a question, just ask your colleagues on the same horizontal level or in the same team. You don't have to ask vertically to a manager who has a bigger distance to the work than your colleague who is sitting next to it. So that's step 2. And the third step is, and that also took us then, let's say, perhaps it was 3-4 years ago, we decided to abolish all bonuses and other stuff, be much stricter in proclaiming that we have a best salary policy or strategy, which means that we pay the best 25% bracket, so to say. So if you compare this with your own peer group, we open it all up, and we split it, and that's the main thing. We totally split it from performance to create psychological safety. So we said, this is the benchmark. We'll pay in this benchmark of the best 25%. We guarantee you a salary increase every year, independent on the discussion going on the work floor. So the work is done in the teams, on the work floor, on a daily basis. People give feedback all the time, and it goes in all the directions. People say, oh, I'm new, I'm not really sure. Shall I do it like this or that? Can you help me? That's not a problem at all, because it doesn't have an effect on the salary for the person itself. And it also doesn't have an effect on the person you give feedback to. So it is an absolute maximum amount of psychological safety, and that all enforces this idea of trust. Because it's much easier to trust each other if you know that the environment is 100% safe.
So an area of positive control, right, is allowing people autonomy, flexibility, and and showing them you trust them, and that obviously builds up the team, builds up empowers the team to move forward. Obviously, as you say, work horizontally rather than figuring out or thinking they have to go speak to their manager. How, if I was a new employee, how do you embed that type of culture a new employee into that type of culture and get the best out of them? Because again, I mean, this is not a cookie cutter situation here, because what we're talking about is maybe something that's quite new, quite innovative, rather than something that's maybe from that we all know about, which is hierarchical. You need to go speak to your boss to get credit for something.
Yeah, okay. If you really want to build a big company, but it's just my personal opinion, the starting point would to take on the one hand the book of Daniel Pink, Drive. So what drives people? And Daniel Pink, because I referred to this article of the Harvard Business Review, which was about self-determination theory of Dacey and Ryan. I think it's from the 50s. So the basic thing is, what drives people? And Daniel Pink would say it's autonomy, a sense of mastery, and a sense of purpose. And Dacey Ryan, where Daniel Pink's theory more or less comes from, instead of purpose, they call it relatedness. So doing something together, this team feeling, liking the people you work together with. Dive into this, because you know that intrinsic motivation always has worked much better than telling other people what to do. That doesn't work. So try to activate as much as intrinsic motivation as possible, and then start. So autonomy is implementing self-organization. Mastery is creating psychological safety, that you can feel fast and that you can ask all the time and that you can give feedback to each other. And a sense of purpose is perhaps the thing which, let's say, in our common time motivates a lot of, especially young people, that they don't only want to go to work to get their salary. No, they want to change something. They want to have a kind of influence on making this world a better place. So you can just start with a white piece of paper and just say, okay, what does it mean for the business I'm building? And then you have to evolve and implement and ask for feedback, etc., etc. And if this is shared in a radical, transparent way, for instance, salaries, if you start with from scratch, with open and radical transparency, and everybody knows from each other what you earn, then it's also much easier to scale than if you have to transform a big organization 10 years or 50 years later.
So I like what you're saying, and it's interesting you're saying, you mentioned a book, What Drives People, and we all know, what the most common denominator in business is, and that is people. And what you need to have is a philosophy or way of working with people in order to get not just your company moving forward in the direction that you'd like to move forward, but also the ecosystem, because you have to think of partners, clients, etc. Because we should be treating them exactly the way as we treat our internal employees, and that's that's the root cause of it. Have a philosophy, and it's okay to play around with that philosophy until you get it right.
And what is also interesting is this idea of relatedness, because let's say people can like the idea of the company or they can like the founders, etc. But it's much more about their peers. They have to like their peers and they have to trust their peers, because these are the people they have to work with all the time and every day. So what was interesting, just also to prove this from an external perspective, we started, which I also would recommend very early, with a great place to work. This is a kind of audit. And then the last 3 years we were #1 in the Netherlands, but we started a couple of years earlier, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. And in the beginning, we were outperforming on this relatedness. So people said we trust our colleagues 100%, so horizontally, but let's say the founders or the management could be a little bit more clearer about where the company is going to. They should improve their communication. Okay, thank you. So we worked on that. And the funny thing is that then the Corona crisis came, and we decided to do an update every week about liquidity, etc., etc. And then let's say half a year ago, we became #1 in Europe in this category until 50 people, because it was about last year. And we got 100% from our people. We always felt informed, 100%. So, but what I wanted to say is, it's mainly the starting point is, do I like those people I have to work on a daily basis? Because these are the people you have to engage with.
These are the projects.
Let's say 8 hours a day.
And just going back to the onboarding phase. I mean, how does a new person come in, and what's the process that you go through to make certain that Jill, Joe, and Brian actually get on, and they do have stuff in common, and they can work on projects, because obviously the old world, you go speak to a manager, they hire you and into a team. What is there a different approach to hiring and onboarding that we're talking about here?
Yeah, we don't have a classical HR department. We also hate the word HR. People are not resources. So it's called people first. But to answer your question in a very practical way, in the end, it's very simple. The people in the teams hire their colleagues. They decide if they like somebody. And the classical idea or the classical statement always is hire for culture, not for skills. Because skills you can learn, and you always have to teach people, because a lot of stuff is also very specific to companies. So you hire together, everybody has a veto, very important. People don't have to explain in an enormous way why they don't like somebody to join their team. And then all the stuff is solved automatically. So it's more about letting go as a founder and trusting people. I mean, there are founders, and we are, let's say, 4 or 5, and they're still part of also of certain processes. I don't do any recruiting at all anymore. It's counterproductive, because I don't know what people are really doing, and then I'm telling big stories, which is not relevant for the daily work. And I think that's if you talk about scaling, perhaps it's also interesting to stress an aspect of letting go, which is very difficult. So people find it very difficult of letting go. On the one hand, founders say we don't want to become managers, but on the other hand, they also still want to decide everything which is going on in the company. And my advice would be try to experiment with, you can call it trust or also acceptance for failure, etc., which is very comparable with having small children. Yeah, we just talked before how we spend our holidays, because you also trust your kids and you also motivate them to learn to walk, and you don't say you can stop learning to walk because you're still not able to walk. So it is a kind of process, and the earlier you start with that, the easier it gets, and it's also much more relaxing, because in a bigger company, your main topic or your main responsibility as a founder is to talk about culture, take care of strategic stuff, read, exchange views in podcasts, etc., etc. And you try to avoid to be very much involved in the daily stuff.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying about the recruitment. Getting talent into your company, and there is generally there. I feel that we look at society, we look at a job description, it's skills. Do you have, can you use Excel, can you use PowerPoint, do you have VBA, and all these things, which is part of the parcel, right? But I think there's, as you say, that the culture part is very important. And just to go down into that for a second, what I like to do is I like to have a hat, for a role. Let's call it the sales hat. Just as a train conductor has a hat, say the head of sales is going to have a hat, and inside that hat you have a beingness, a doingness, and a havingness. And the beingness is, what type of person do we want in this role? Is it a courageous person, an outgoing person, that type of person that will actually fit into the culture of the team and the organization? The doingness is more the technical side of things, and the havingness is the outcome. What do we want at the end of it? What is the product that the head of sales needs to deliver on a month in, month out, quarter in, quarter out perspective? And what I find is, if you look at it like that, you ticking off different parts of culture, you ticking off different parts of maybe some technical skills, but also an outcome. So this person is going to be delivering something, whether it's a new lead or whether it's a system, who knows. But then when you interviewing or talking to someone, you are able to have a wide-ranging conversation about different things, rather than box them into their previous job and their other job and their other job before that around technical skills and what have you.
But I would like to say about the discussion which is going on about recruiting. The funny thing is that you often have technical discussion, and people say people know about how to recruit. Or just take this example of sales, because let's say we are advisors. So you could say that's a little bit the same like sales. And I want to make two remarks. On the one hand, I think it's too much on skills, and not about culture.
Great.
And the second remark I want to make is we think that extrovert people are much better than introvert people, especially when we talk about sales. And both discussions are wrong. So culture is more important than skills.
Yeah, great.
And introvert people are in the long run very good to be in sales teams. Because sales is not only about doing fast cold calling, which we don't do at all, but it's about understanding with empathy how a client wants to be treated. So if you talk about the golden rule, the empathy of listening and understanding how I can help a client. By the way, we have the highest client satisfaction in the Netherlands by putting our own people first, and don't tell them how they have to serve the client. So the only thing we say is, if you advise a client, and we're not talking about understanding technical skills about how mortgages work, because you need to be approved by FSA or the regulators, etc. No, it's about listening to a client and understanding, and really understanding, not only listening, but really understanding, and try to find out what would you like, how would you like to be treated, and what solution would you expect if you would be this client. Just a very small note on that. 25% of our new hires are former clients.
Nice.
So it's all about, let's say, if you let's say, what is bad sales? That's working into, I don't know, somebody wants to buy a car, and then somebody is explaining how excellent this car is and how fast it goes and whatsoever, without finding out if somebody walks in because he just needs a new car because he has 2 kids. And then somebody is selling a sports car because you as a man walk in, and then somebody thinks it's very important for you how fast the car is, etc. But you want to have a safe car, and you want to be able to put a lot of tennis stuff in the back of your station wagon.
And this is life in a nutshell, in a way, because this is a great example of listening and understanding the customer's requirements, and then you're giving a customer what they want. And all too often, we just assume that a customer wants a sports car because of the way they look, and that's it, done. But you have to, you have to have that empathy, and you have to be that, even if founders have to have empathy, salespeople have to have empathy, people in general have to have empathy. You have to give a damn about the other person on the other side of the call, or the other side of the phone, or the other side of the desk, in order for that collaboration or that relationship to blossom into something. Who knows what that something could be? It could be, buying a new car. It could be maybe collaborating on something else. But you have to ask the questions in order to figure that out, right?
The funny thing is, because I also like these practical examples, because in the end it's about simplifying. To make things more complicated, that's not very difficult. But to explain things in a very simple way everybody understands, and then most of the time examples of daily life really help. So let's say my wife always is always a little bit annoyed, because it doesn't matter if I walk into a restaurant or buy a new sofa, I always start to ask questions the other person should have asked me. So let's say if I would walk into a restaurant, I would say, okay, what can you recommend? So I get a manual, and then people expect that I tell them what I want to eat, and I say, what can you recommend today? And then depending on the person, how good he is, he would ask, I don't know, are you vegetarian? Do you like meat? Do you like fish? Do you want something heavy? Do you want something, etc., etc.? Are you more into salad or whatsoever? But if you would say, I would take this steak, and somebody says I'm vegetarian, everybody immediately understands that doesn't really work. Or we had to buy a sofa last week. It's a huge difference if you buy a sofa where you have kids, and they I mean, you know how a sofa looks like when you have 2 small children. I have 2 boys. It doesn't make sense to buy a white Italian beautiful sofa you can't wash. So the guy was brilliant. So we explained about colors, fabric, etc. Said it has to be strong fabric. It should be cleanable, etc. And what did the guy do? He took his phone and he said, I have the same sofa at home. I have 2 small children and a cat. And he showed a picture of it. I mean, that's excellent. So so to understand, because if you would have said, I have a loft and I'm single and you have this white Italian sofa there because nobody ever sits on it, that's something difficult
because they can fully relate to your situation.
And that's to my point of view, that's always the case in life.
I like it. You know, a couple of weeks ago, we were called into the end of term reports because we were over here in the UK. There's a sort of midterm break, and you know, the teacher was running 10 minutes late. She came in, you know, all sort of uptight and, you know, anxious in a way, and got out her iPad and started talking to us. And then she just like sprang it on us. It's like, we think your son is dyslexic. I was like, okay, where's this come from? You know, just like out of the blue. And we think he needs to do X, Y, Z, and we're doing this. Okay, whoa, what's going on here? You've known Ollie for you know, the grand total of 6 weeks, and you know, bam, this information is landed on us, and we're like, okay, that's interesting. You know, thank you. We take it away and we think about it. So you know, it's an interesting situation because this person, you know, maybe out of the good of her heart, maybe because something's happened at school, has decided all of a sudden, bam, that's it, and is trying to move us down a path, which is maybe the right path, maybe the wrong path. Let's see. And my wife and I we chatted about this, and then we decided to, you know, be a bit more, you know, productive, put it that way, over the holidays, and sort of test and see what my son had. And you know, basically he's just a boy, a 7-year-old boy that, you know, wants to go play sports all the time, and just he thinks that, you know, writing and doing maths and stuff like that is a bit doesn't want to do it. But when he does it, and when he puts his mind to it, he can do it. So we said to the teacher, when we get back, let's not go down that path. And you know, back to your point, you know, maybe in this instance, if the teacher had said, "You guys, have you had any concerns, or you know, what is his history?" there would have been a better sort of outcome, maybe also a better relationship now. And that goes in business as well. All the time, people are quick to assume things and try and move forward, and especially in scaling, you don't always have to put your foot on the accelerator, but you do have to know where you're going, right? And I know it was interesting earlier on, you're saying that, you know, you're a founder, that you've built up a business where it's something that you enjoy. It's something that you love. It's your passion. You don't hate going to work every day. You don't dislike going into work every day. You love it. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I think it'll be interesting to. Sorry, Karen.
Yeah, but I think if you talk about scaling, scaling gives you the possibility to do more and more the things you love to do.
Exactly.
Because in a greater company, you have more possibilities of choosing the stuff you like. And if you create an environment where everybody can do this, because if, for instance, in our case, fixed salaries and you have roles which are part of functions, etc., it becomes more fluid. Then life becomes, let's say, nicer and nicer all the time as a founder.
Yeah.
So, but let's say, having said this, the problem is that if you have to do more and more, then it starts to become more hectic. And then also the rest to ask people, what can I do for you? Is much more difficult. But you're in a hurry all the time.
Yeah.
And then you think you already know the answer before even having asked somebody. So I think the role of the founder scaling a company is to hire better people to give all the stuff, and then just walk around and say, we repeat the purpose of the company. We're here to change the world for the better. Just that, just to take this purpose part of Daniel Pink or etc. Then the second thing is that's the way we do it here. It's more, in our case, it's the golden rule, or no, you can call it no assholes, or focus on the team, and no egoistic behavior, and no prima donna, etc. That's how do we treat each other? That's another example. But what I like most is to have an enormous amount of time zooming out. And for instance, in the Corona part, and where we started to discuss about how will this evolve, we asked from an HR perspective, because you also asked about recruiting. We zoomed out and asked, Richard, what do we have to do to create an environment where you want to stay for the rest of your working life? Which is a totally different question than to zoom in and say, okay, can we talk about the KPIs of next week? And everybody becomes, let's say, crazy, and it's micromanaging, it's demotivating, etc. So to zoom out and to say, okay, how can we build an environment where people really like to stay, test new things, etc. And then they see that everybody can blossom or develop their skills. And it also depends on the what we found out. It really depends on also the phases of your personal life. So you find out that, let's say, people who are single, they started, they are totally go and fast and blah blah blah. And then you have people, for those who start families, they say, okay, I want to have a little bit more of routine, more stable environment, I want to have the flexibility, etc. And then perhaps at a certain part, people say, I've done it for 25 years, I want to explore something new, etc. So this probably 3 kind of phases. But how do you find this out? If people feel secure to share their really deep, I can call it needs or whatsoever, but do share. People normally this kind of answers or questions or beliefs in normal environment. Now they're focusing and saying, okay, I will stay here for this job and then I have to move on because blah blah blah, etc. And I think that's one of the most fulfilling parts of being a founder. That's your privilege to walk around in your company and asking Richard, what can I do for you? Or what can I create that you would like to stay here for the next 25 years?
And, can you give us some insights as to some of the information that came out of there that maybe has helped you as a founder and also as a company, maybe update some of those HR policies, etc.?
Yeah, very interesting. We had, on the one hand, we found out that, this model of it really depends on the part of your life we are in. So especially people who, let's say, start young in companies, they automatically enter a phase where they discuss family, and they want to have just more. I also refer to this article, autonomy and flexibility. So it's a mixture of it. On the one hand, they want to get the trust to use their autonomy to organize it around their private life. So it's the other way around. So just take a very practical example. We never had meetings on, let's say, 8 o'clock in the morning. My wife has, because she works in big corporate. But that's exactly the time where people bring their children to school. So just don't do this crap. It doesn't mean that people who don't have children can work between 8 and 10, but just don't put meetings there. So people ask for more flexibility and putting their family first, and then do the work around it. And which doesn't mean that they don't work, but it's perhaps depending on the situation a little bit different. Then the second thing is that people like much more routine, which is this part of mastery. In big corporations, or also in the media or in those podcasts, the whole idea of I have to do something totally new every 3 years is just not the case. So people who are big tennis players, and they, let's say after a couple of years, just take this example as tennis, because we discussed this before the podcast. If somebody really is able to play tennis after 5 years, he or she is not going to change sports. It doesn't say, okay, I have played tennis now and I'm able to really play a great game. Now I'm moving to I don't know, soccer or something like that. So why do we accept this kind of enjoyment from being able to play a sports very well? Or a musician, if you start a certain instrument, you're not changing your role in the orchestra.
But there's not going to be enjoyment, right? I think to your point earlier on, I think people just get a bit tired of potentially working with colleagues and the politics behind it. But you guys are countering that because you brought in an ecosystem that brings in autonomy, flexibility, making certain that people actually like working together. And you're asking these big questions around how can we keep this team together. So it's interesting the way you guys have approached it. But I think in society in general, there is a bit of fatigue that creeps in after 3 or 4 or 5 years because of the structures that are, maybe, I don't want to say imposed, but are in place, that in order for them to break free and just release, they feel the need that they need to escape in a way.
Yeah, so sometimes, I mean, if you, let's say, take an advisor and he says, okay, I've done different segments of mortgage advice, etc. Then if there is this flexibility of just doing something new, taking new client segment or products or whatsoever, you need those people who really are experienced and let's say are not external people who have never advised any client. I mean, I've been an advisor myself, so let's say if somebody discusses the stuff, people know where they talk about. So why wouldn't you facilitate this? And just to add on your question, what also came out, if you talk, there's a lot of discussion going on about remote work, etc. Just ask the people. So what we found out is that first, there's a huge difference between people. Some people really don't like to go into the office, perhaps more introvert people. And the extrovert people want to go back because they want to talk and chat with their colleagues. So there's one thing, not everybody is the same. The second thing is this private topic. People who have children have a totally different rhythm, and they don't like to commute because they have to bring their children to school and get them out of school. And what we found out, to put it in a more general statement, is that people want to work at home, perhaps 1 to 2 days. Then they want to meet colleagues, but without commuting. So we installed a structure that everybody can rent co-working spaces or together with colleagues organize their offices. This idea of, let's say, a maximum of a quarter of half an hour to go by foot or by bike. And then the third thing is that because this sense of belonging or relatedness to being a part of a bigger story, which also connects to the purpose, that people say, sometimes, or perhaps once a week or once a month, I would like to see those colleagues which live in other parts of the country. Let's meet in Amsterdam at our headquarters. But leave it to the teams. Leave it to the people. And then everything works out. And if somebody doesn't show up for a few months, I mean, if it's fine for the rest of the team, then it's also okay.
Yes, it definitely makes complete sense. And as we wrap up and get close to the hour mark, I want to ask you, I want to enter what I call the flash round. I mentioned the flash round in our discussion, in our email yesterday, in our discussion early on. Flash round is a bit of fun at the end of the podcast, just to give everyone a bit of insights as to what it takes to be an entrepreneur, founder, and also a bit of insights as to you as a person, Tom. So here we go. There's 3 questions for you, and then you have to shoot 1 question back at me. So I'll put you on the spot for the umpteenth time today. But here we go. So, what is the biggest life-changing event that has occurred to you, and how has this impacted your journey as a founder and entrepreneur?
Okay, that's an easy one for me. Having survived cancer when I was 20, so more than 30 years ago. That's, I think, something I have shared before. And that's the most valuable thing. So I never would recommend to die early or to have an illness, which could have this kind of consequence. But surviving something like that, and people who are interested in this, I'm a big fan of the book of Viktor Frankl, A Man's Search for Meaning, because there's this link to purpose. So early in life, nearly dead, wonderful. Because it gives you a very clear sense of what's important and what's not important.
Yeah, brilliant. And next one, I know you're an avid reader, so this is specifically for you. What is one book that you keep on picking up year on year?
Also easy to answer. Because I do those book podcasts, and I read a book a week more or less. In the end, it's interesting that the things which are not practical on the first impression are the most valuable stuff. So books on philosophy, I just mentioned Viktor Frankl. But so read more. I would say to all the founders, read more outside the box. Read philosophy, read anthropology, read sociology. You can still read biographies of successful entrepreneurs, but it's the real essence of life is not in the management literature.
And I think I know what you're going to answer for the next question, because we've been speaking about it for the last sort of 45 minutes, but I'll ask it anyway. What's the most critical part of scaling your business?
Oh, that is still difficult, but I would say remain true to your roots, to your purpose. Don't rush. But that also has, that's easily said, because we still own all our shares. So I would say try to decide from the start what's the reason why you start a company. So if you want to live an autonomous life in balance with your own principles, there's something different than starting a company to exit it 4 years later. Brilliant
answer there. And now over to you. Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask me? Any question?
I would say, what is the biggest insight of your life until now?
The biggest insights, I think it happened early on. If I'm really honest here, I think we've chatted about this a bit offline, and I grew up in the midst of a nation that was divided. Little did I know, in South Africa there was this thing called apartheid, and I grew up at the tail end of that, and there was a lot of disagreement and a lot of anxiousness, and a lot of maybe infighting, we'll call it that. But it came 1993, I think it was, 1992, when Nelson Mandela got released. I think there was a different sense of something that could be great, was going to be great, and there was a real uplift in the country. I think I was only 10 or 11. I felt, wow, this, we're going to take on the world, which was it was really awesome to be part of that and part of the transition, from, a society that wasn't equal, but I was definitely part of that new trend of youngsters that could be a part of something very, very special. And I remember Nelson Mandela coming to my school in 1993 and giving us a speech to, a group of white, colored, black, Asian children, which was, multiracial in a society that definitely wasn't multiracial before that, which was really great. And, he chatted to us, and, the biggest thing, still the biggest influence on my life, he said to a group of, 10, 11-year-old boys, you have the power to decide. You have the power to decide your path. So go ahead and do what you want to do in life. It's a blue ocean. And still to today, that is a big inspiration. And I always look at that day so long ago that still has a major influence in my life and has allowed me to, maybe jump over obstacles and hurdles that maybe I couldn't have gone through. But I think having a purpose, I sort of was able and lucky enough to, be in the presence of someone that's that great, and really be able to follow that person and be able to take in what he is saying. And I think everyone, whether you are in the presence of someone such as Nelson Mandela or not, it's inside you. It's something inside you that will move you forward in your journey. It's not all the tricks and the bells and the whistles, but it's you. It's simply down to you to get on with it.
I think the link also to this Nelson Mandela or Viktor Frankl, which I mentioned, is that, to put it in one sentence, the purpose of business is purpose. The purpose of business is not business. So business is not to maximize profits. The purpose of business is to change something for the better.
Brilliant.
And the fulfillment, and there's the link to the individual, is that the purpose of life is to find fulfillment. Exactly. And not to become rich. And there you have to link the founder to the company. And I think if you are in balance, because the purpose of your own life is to do something meaningful, and the purpose of the company is also to do something meaningful, then it's easy to stand up every day and feeling privileged to do what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I think you rounded it up so brilliantly there, and I could not agree more. And as we wrap up today's show, if anyone wants to contact you or reach out to you, what is the best way to do that, Tom?
So everybody can always connect me on LinkedIn. As we are a self-organizing company, I always have time also to answer it. So, and I also do. So feel free to do so. And if I can help anybody, then I'm also happy to do this.
Brilliant. And thanks for coming on the show today. It's been brilliant. And those of you out there that want to subscribe to the podcast, please go ahead and log into www.𝒘𝒓𝒆𝒂𝒕𝒆.co/media. Subscribe. There's a treasure trove of information there, obviously including today's podcast and lots of other podcasts that will allow you to build up your knowledge and take you forward in your journey. So again, Tom, really excellent conversation today. Really happy to have you on the show again, and no doubt I'm sure we can draw you back in the next little while. But thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, Richard.